kind of have to ask yourself what success looks like. And this is a question that I was asking for a lot of the North American teams, and it ended up being success looks like beating G2, because that's what we learned last year. If they can do that again, it's going to be something successful. But here, I feel like, especially for Estral, success looks like beating PSG, right? PSG has players that have had large amounts of experience international like Maple, 3 former LPL players. It's a very accomplished roster, and this Estral team already accomplished a lot domestically, but then I feel like success would be being definitively better than PSG and keeping their chances alive to actually advance to the next stage.
Yeah, especially since a lot of people came into the tournament with PSG as a team that perhaps could challenge the bottom tiers of the LCS or the LEC. I think expectations have changed a little bit around the PSG over the last couple of days, but we'll see how well they can do today. Let's get into picks and bans. As you can see on your screen, Lee, Sejuani, and Ashe taken away by PSG. Azir, Vi, Senna removed by Estral. Varus first pick into an immediate answer of Kalista Malka.
Yeah, and we've seen some insane aggression from the bot lane. We did see a large amount of lane swaps in day one as well. I feel like we saw T1 practicing lane swaps in their matchup against Estral, but we'll see. I don't expect either of these teams to want to opt in. I think the fact that they both picked strong laning AD carries in Varus and Kalista means that they can match up a little bit against each other. I think a lot of times lane swapping is to bypass the laning phase for something like a hyper carry, and currently we don't see that.
And there's always the question about what top laners get picked as well. If you see something like a Rumble or a Twisted Fate get locked in, then sometimes you lane swap just to put them behind where you have a tank who can just scale into the game via levels rather than through getting all that gold. Taliyah and Wukong locked in for PSG. Once again, they have a team fighting composition on the horizon. This is what PSG love to do. Estral, I wonder if we'll see support here. Could, of course, look to mid lane to try and answer that Taliyah.
Yeah, I would expect Cody to match with something right now. We saw his Ari already. If you look at what he was able to pull off domestically, he played, probably every champion. I looked at his Games of Legends, and the number of champion icons was larger than pretty much any player I've seen. But the Nico here is actually, I think, a pretty intelligent flex pick. It could be played into the Taliyah. I think maybe more likely that's going to be Ackerman joining the Kalista in the bot lane, but they get to hold that flex as long as they want.
Having watched Estral, I do think they're better when Ackerman is on more of a tank engage. Obviously, Nico does give you engage tools as well, especially with the Fate's Call, but I like to see him on something more like the Rel, the Nautilus, someone who has a bit more beefiness when they go into the middle of the fight. We'll see, as you say, where that Nico goes. We've seen a lot of Kalista Nico lanes over the last few months, especially T1 bringing it out with Guma and Keria. Tristana bound away by PSG, trying to pinch possibly Cody's pool in the mid lane. Rumble and Nautilus taken away by Estral.
Yeah, I do find this meta really fascinating, actually, just because, and I also do blame G2 for the lane swapping. Yeah, I know it happened first in the LPL, but G2, I think, the fact that we saw T1 already basically practicing lane swaps in the play-in stage means that it's here to stay. And it just creates so many odd questions as you move into this phase of the draft, because you're wondering, like, the top lane pool that you can blind pick is different. We see another TF ban coming through right now. Renekton blind is pretty safe. They're holding the Nico flex as long as possible. So far, I do like what Estral's done with their draft.
For a while, I was on the side of, I don't like lane swaps that much because you don't tend to see as much action, and the top lanes tend to be, level 1 at minute 10. But I've decided I'm on the side of lane swaps now. I think it adds a lot of inventiveness into the draft. Both teams have to be aware of it. And you start to see these intricacies in the game. Do you 2-wave stack? Do you 3-wave stack? Do you contest your own buff level 1? You have all of these little extra bits that hopefully we can start to break down as the games go on. Obviously, it might just be that everyone runs into a jungle and play 5v5s at level 1, and that's also interesting. So that's, there's a lot of different aspects to it, chat.
I think we might be seeing an Udyr top, though.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't surprise me too much, because Zotae did bring it out during the regular season.
3 times.
Estral. 3 times.
Yeah, and they actually did play a good number of games. What we have here is 39 games on record for them. What is this final pick going to be? It's the Bard Hover. I mean, I guess it could work.
So it's Galio support most likely. We have seen Galio mid, Galio top. Taliyah is likely to go mid, so then the Udyr top makes the most sense. Obviously, Zotae is playing on Estral, and I said Zotae played the Udyr top, but that's on PSG side. I just confused that slightly for a second.
I'm just... Okay, Nico support, A-Soul mid, more team fight scaling. better bot lane bullying. I do think Betty Woody with Varus Galio would actually now want to dodge the laning phase, so I do think this is going to be a swap game, because I think as soon as you play Galio support, that's a dive engage tool. That is going to get absolutely ran by Kalista, Nico, and lane, so we're going to be seeing them dodge at least the early laning phase.
Swap out of it, and I did know there was an Udyr player in this game, and I was right that the PSG top laner played a lot of Udyr. 17 games across the course of their season. It was his most played, Azure's most played. So it was somewhere in the back of my subconscious. I just couldn't quite draw it out in time, Jan. So we will see Azure on his famous Udyr, 17 games on it, 70% win rate on it during the PCS. On the other side, we'll see if Estral can go for that aggression. We heard Jose Diodo in the interview saying, against T1, we didn't really try to do anything special. We just played aggressive, we played our style, and hopefully that will work for them against PSG, who also played their style against FlyQuest. They went for the team fights, they went for later game, and they were able to match toe-for-toe in some of the best games I think we've had at play in so far.
I absolutely agree. I think the matchup that I'm going to have my eyes on as we're about to load into the game is actually just going to be Maple versus Cody.
Yeah.
Mainly because Maple is such a veteran. For those English language viewers who saw him, know him as TSM's mid laner, that is not really a good representation of his overall all skill level. He has a lot of MSI specific success, made it through to the final group stage a couple of times, some world success as well, and then going up against a player like Cody, who has just been such a bright spot the entire split for the LLA, is going to be fascinating. And now Talia versus Asol as well. Whether or not Maple can impact the map early on Talia, which is a pick he's found success with for years and years and years, could be the deciding factor in this game, because I feel like if Cody can actually, and more so the rest of Estral, avoid getting roamed on by Maple getting lane prior and moving to side lanes, I think they'd have a pretty good chance scaling up later on in this game.
I mean, you look at Aurelion Sol, you look at the team fight prowess that can come from a Renekton and a Maokai, the lockdown potential. Later on, Estral Esports team fights can be very strong. Lane swaps don't seem to be occurring as of yet, but as I say that, I see Betty and Woody moving through the mid lane. There was lines of scrimmage early, no deep wards from either team. Betty and Woody just trying to avoid any vision that could come from Estral. They're invading towards this red side, but back away after they don't see anyone. Ward in by PSG means that Jose Diodo will just back away to that bush.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as Udyr saw Renekton top lane, he went to recall, and they've done the swap. They also have a ward. I think they're potentially going to try and push Jose off of these Raptors. That's a great... Basically, you don't want to let him get this for free. I think they can move him off it. That's really going to push Jose down. Junjia is on Wukong, not getting pushed off his red buff in the first place. So this is a good lane swap start for PSG.
And it's another iteration, another change in how lane swaps can work. Because often you see the jungler going up for that invade. You're looking to steal away the Razor Beak, steal away the red. Instead, Junjia says, I'm just going to start on my red. I'm not going to look for a smite fight. Maokai very good at taking Razor Beaks with the Bramble Smash level 1, and we'll have our AD carry and our support move in. Zothé does manage to get 3 minions of this wave, but that's now stacked against him, so they can freeze it in the top lane.
I'm actually really curious to see if PSG decides to freeze that top lane. I think that was a mistake for Zothé to actually touch the wave, and he has to abandon that immediately. Once he abandons it, then they'd end up breaking the freeze, so moving through mid lane. But Maple sees it because of that incredibly valuable ward that they placed over at the Raptor pit, so actually a pretty strong start to the lane swap for PSG.
Because there was also the idea of, do you freeze, have your Varus freezing solo top lane, put Woody down towards the bottom lane to prep for what is likely to be a 3-wave, maybe a 2-wave crash, and bot can't quite see exactly how that minion waves, so it's a 3-wave crash. Azure's going to try and get level 2, manages to tick over. Udyr, he does have good wave clear, but will he be able to survive this?
I mean, honestly, getting level 2 is pretty big, because even if he wants to clear as many... It's all about getting experience to me. Get as much experience as you can, then if you teleport back and you get level 3, then they wouldn't be able to dive you again. I think he's actually dead here.
Ackerman tanking it up. He's not. Still half HP.
Shot.
Zothé still only level 1. Azure just trying to get as much XP as possible. Zothé goes in. He's going to tank. He gets level 3. There's the stun on Jose. It's perfect for PSG Jose, though. An incredible twisted advance means that he drops the tower aggro. Will Estral continue to look for this? Meanwhile, in the top lane, still Betty and Woody just pushing in. Azure looking for everything he can get out of it, but he can't quite survive. In the end, he does die. Survive for a much longer time than I think we expected.
But he's coming back, and he's getting that wave right away, because they took so long to dive. He got so much experience. They used so many resources. They won't be able to re-dive. That is really rough for Estral, because not getting that first dive clean means they're not going to be able to shut the neuter down. You can see the fortification on this top lane turret. Even though they were free hitting it this entire time, they barely get that second plate. And you can see a 2-level gap already opened up. I think that's the sneaky thing about these lane swaps is we can look at the gold and we're saying how well PSG is doing, and you could look up there and say, hey, they're down 100, 200 gold. But I think the fact that they have a 2-level advantage now on their bot lane makes them strongly advantaged.
Yeah, usually you look about 600 gold per level, or at least that was the stat a couple of years ago. I'm sure iterates depending on exactly where we are in the patch cycle. But Azure basically has a 600 gold lead just in terms of experience. Zofe has been able to get a few more CS, a couple. He might look for this plate. Steps forward, does have that demolish proc as well. He won't be able to get the plate as of yet. Meanwhile, Betty and Woody now going down towards the bottom lane. They avoided the early Hail of Blades threat that is Kalista. They got to level 3 themselves, and now Woody has all of the tools to disengage a fight, which he wouldn't have had if this was the level 1 lane.
Yeah, and I think more importantly, he has the ability to engage a fight as well, and you can have gank threat against a ranged bot lane. So that's kind of, I think this to me is the acceptable form of lane swaps actually, because you're not just swapping infinitely with no interaction. It's for a specific strategic purpose. It's to make sure that your melee support doesn't just have to twiddle their thumbs for
and get auto attacked for like half your
3 minutes and then get dove at level 2. They're actually at level 3. Sure, they're still losing the lane a little bit now, but that wave's going to crash. They should be able to defend it and then pick it up once it crashes.
Ginger coming in as well. No vision. Or no ward, at least in that tribush, but there is a sapling there for Snacker and Ackerman, who will be safe enough if Ginger looks for the gank. Elsewhere on the map, actually, Honor's relatively even. A lead for Ginger in the jungle. He's been able to just farm up with Azure surviving in the bot lane while Jose Diodo was looking for that gank. Azure has a slight lead in the top lane, the XP about a level ahead, but what's the rest of the map? Relatively even between these two teams through 6 minutes.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have to watch to see if Maple going to have any influence now that he's at level 6. I'd say Cody done very well in this lane already. This is one of the lane swaps where we actually didn't see many people just bypassing mid lane, messing up the wave state, and then moving on. So it could still be absolutely anyone's game despite that experience advantage we saw early. Level 6 versus level 4 now for the Neuter versus Renekton. But ultimately, I'm Team Dragon in the Dragon versus Grubs trade. Okay. So I would say that specific interaction, I would favor Estral and Jose being able to get that Dragon.
Do you have a chant or anything for them?
For Team Dragon?
Yeah.
I haven't worked it that far.
Oh, Maple caught out. Falling Sky coming down as Cody takes the kill. Ackerman positioned it, well, Ackerman takes the kill. Positioned himself well to land the Tangle Barbs. Maple did have the flash, but didn't have time to use it.
So, I feel like Maple's asking the same question I am right now. Why was he there? Why was Nico there? Because they just did a Dragon for Grubs trade. You're not contesting the Grubs.
Yep.
So, great roam. Insane play. That's amazing to be able to pick it up. Shame that the kill didn't go over to Cody, but that is such a good kill. And Maple, I think, is just shocked, actually, that he's even there, because he should just be reset. Maybe he's in mid lane to just decide if there's a lane swap, but he did not expect him to be through that part of the jungle, especially with all the prio they had. Udyr was up towards the Grubs. There was no logical reason for him to be there, but he was there and it pays off. What a great kill.
Zofe almost losing out to Azure here. Pops the Dominus just in time, but Ginger is waiting in the wings. Zofe can only stand and watch, tries to slice, tries to dice, but even with the stun, he manages to escape. The Weaver's wall will block him up. He's dead now. PSG brought enough numbers, and Zofe burnt everything to try and get away.
Yeah, actually really cool what happened there. So the reason that he was even able to live in the first place is they were trying to give the kill over to Wukong just so they could generate more total gold, not necessarily so they could deny Udyr the gold because they wanted the kill plus assist. But then he's able to stall it out just a little bit. However, I feel like it ends up not mattering. Maple was there anyway. He gets a little bit of assist goal too. Actually ends up getting the kill, and they're still able to pick up plates afterwards.
It was also a good move from PSG's bot lane. They pushed in bot and then they rotated to mid as Maple moved top, so you're covering both those lanes. Now the wave crashes in bot lane, and Bessie and Woody are here to accept it, meaning you don't lose that extra wave of experience and gold that you can do when your mid laner roams away from mid.
Yeah, and just kind of touching back on the ramifications of that early lane swap, the biggest advantage is currently the Udyr versus the Renekton. That's not going to matter in a bit.
Yeah.
when you're level 12 versus level 11, Udyr versus Rekton, nobody cares. What it did allow, though, was Betty to make it to this stage.
It's cool. Flashed away by Betty.
And
Woody tries to buffer the Justice Punch. Chain of Corruption coming out as well. Woody with the damage reduction, able to flash away in time. Jose Diodo goes in, but the cleanse came out. Zofe being chased out by Azure. It matters right now, chat. Even if it won't matter when they get a couple more levels, Azure's showing why he's such a competent player on this Udyr.
I mean, yeah, maybe it's actually going to be the deciding factor in the game. You never know. If that can continue, if he keeps that wave frozen enough times, and if he can get enough side lane advantages to make the move first. This mid lane play, though, by Cody.
I think it's just Stardust harassment. He doesn't have enough mana really to do anything more. Does have the flash. Maple might look for the seismic shove.
Go for something.
If you burn flash, he burns flash. Probably worth it. Catch the Azir later, the Aurelion Soul later on, but for now, decides against it, you know?
Yeah, much ado about nothing. Cody was using his mana before the recall anyway. Gonna watch this Solica one more time. So really, Renekton is just trying to get the wave in. He felt like he did enough work, and then I think just underestimated Udyr's damage for the Udyr main that we have in this tournament.
Yeah. It's also the risk of doing that when your jungler is showing bot.
Yeah.
Because Azure knows that Maokai is bot lane, knows that he can just run at you. If Jose Diodo shows up, that becomes a very different state of affairs. Azure maybe escapes, but probably isn't able to kill you in the 1v1. So a lot on Azure's shoulders alongside Maples here for PSG. They're the two players of PSG with a kill. Dragon up in about a minute's time. It's Ocean Drake. Grub's up in 30 seconds. PSG will be looking to get to 6. Udyr obviously a good split push threat as well, if he can get those 6 grubs under his belt.
Yeah, 2 levels up, 400 gold up in the matchup. That's the majority of their lead in this game. Betty and Woody both having no flash makes it very difficult for them to play this game and stop Estral from stacking Drakes unless we actually see the Udyr teleport in for the next Drake fight. But I think if you're Estral here, you're just trying to control bot as much as possible. I like this recall timing from Cody. He can go back. Still had the teleport. Good interrupt there by Maple. You'd love to be able to get your first item spike if Cody can just get a little bit more gold before this Ocean Drake fight.
Rylai is so powerful in Aurelion Soul.
Yeah.
Well. The ability just to permanently slow your opponents and get multiple of them off in a fight. Seismic shove wide there as Cody will accept this wave in mid. Next wave probably about 20 seconds away, meaning Cody can just recall after this. With Maple moving down towards the bottom side, maybe looking for a Weaver's Wall or just setting up around the Drake. They have a tiny window here while Cody resets.
Exactly. That's why that interrupt on the original ASOL recall was so big, because it actually buys this timer to push Snacker and Ackerman back into their turret and makes it more difficult for Jose Diodo to actually get river control.
Seismic shove on Cody. Again, it's just trading health bars, trading mana bars, not really too much happening there. Azure and Zofe do both have TPs, obviously both have ways to cancel the opposition's TP as well, as Ginger now with Woody and Betty push in the bot lane, push in, get a little bit of vision around this jungle, trying to contest this second Drake. Don't want Estral to get 2 under their belts early on.
Yeah, so Cody finally getting, looks like he's going to go back to base and be able to pick up his Rylai's and is currently saving his TP. I will say, though, that top lane is becoming a bigger issue as well. Here comes an engage. No flashes.
Flashing forward, Betty with the cleanse. Justice Punch in. There's the double taunt. TP's now invested on either side. Bates call. But Ginger can't find more. Ackerman.
They're in there.
Goes forward once again. The Falling Star not enough to chunk out Maple.
So overall, I actually do really like them hard forcing here, because basically Cody teleported back to lane. Maple was already in lane, so the tempo disadvantage that he had to the Taliyah was erased with that 4v4 skirmish in the bot lane. But this is that inevitability right now of the Udyr. 1 full item completed to just a Caulfield's Warhammer. Unless they send help up, he's just going to keep extending this lead. There's no way to actually move him from that position. And he's got the threat of teleport right now, so PSG are the ones that are going to be able to pick up this Drake. Woo!
And I'm wondering what Estral do about it. Right? Do you send Jose top? Do you try and contest around these grubs, get the push out, maybe bring your AD carry up towards the top side as well to push for that top tier 1 and contest the grubs? Because Ginger just got a Drake, not for free, obviously, because there was a sequence of events in bot that led to him having the pressure on the map to be able to take this, but with no pressure on the top side from Estral, which is what you really want to see, right? If Ginger is on the bottom side, get your support, get your jungler into the enemy jungle on the blue side of the map, and get some vision in so you can actually contest what would be the next neutral objective in the form of Grub.
Yeah, absolutely. The Renekton is just so far behind the curve right now. And I do also wonder, with the lethality Kalista, if this Udyr is going to be that unkillable for probably until about 30 minutes into this game.
There's a lot of weight on Cody's shoulders, really, to put the damage down, right? Which takes a while.
Exactly. I mean, Estral is a very strong pick. I know APA was one of the first ones to bring it out this year, but then it really, after that, kind of took off around the world in basically every single regional playoff. So just an incredibly powerful pick, especially when you have Talia Varus. Late game team fights, the giant ASO ult is going to be pretty undodgeable, but we're definitely not there yet. I think it's going to be about whether or not Estral can just buy time and hold this Udyr at bay, as he's going to be, I think, moving around the map, taking a lot of turrets.
It's going to be very difficult as well, because PSG have tools on the rest of their champs to stop you from buying time. They have the Wukong going in with the Cyclone. They've got the Seismic Shove, Chain of Corruption. They've got the Galio Taunt. Like, how are you going to escape all of these tools, especially when your flashes and your cleanses are down? Snacker, cleanse, still about quarter of the way off.
There we go.
Down. Good engage from Jose de Yoda. That was gorgeous. Beautifully done. Flash across the wall, get the kill in mid.
And there's also the damage you have from the lethality Kalista, how quickly they were able to kill him. They can move up and contest this Rift Herald as well.
No second grubs this game. Rift Herald instead the target for these two teams. It was just leashed by PSG. Ginger trying to get in here. The Nature's Grasp will stop him from getting any closer. Rift Herald secured for Estral.
Yeah, Cody with the big ASOL ultimate as well to be able to try and keep this mid prio. Really close game, and this game I'm hoping is a little bit indicative of the closest in the series. One surprising thing to me about this game is actually how low the action has been thus far, considering both teams actually have so many trigger pulls, so many different ways to start fights. I think the lane swapping is definitely part of that, reducing the lethality early on in the game. But I think now, as we move towards more and more consequential Drake fights, we're going to see some pretty explosive engages.
Both teams just playing towards their win conditions as well. It's relatively good scaling on either side. Obviously, the Aurelion Soul only 130 stacks so far. Usually about 20 minutes, you're looking at 200, and then after that point, at least 10 a minute. Looks like Cody is going to be a little bit delayed on that as PSG step in. Does have the Skies Descend, not back with the Seismic Shove, into the Taunt, into the Chase, the Cyclone, a Tempest for PSG as they find the enemy mid in the jungle.
Great pick by Maple there over the wall. Cody trying to contribute to that fight, but Maple just had so much push bot, was able to move in, get the Seismic Shove, and then just completely lock him down for the rest of that fight. That's just so huge, because that was essentially the strength of Estral there. When we just saw that MasterCard lane economy snapshot, like, I would take a 1,300 gold advantage on my bot lane if it means their top lane has the 1,400 gold advantage. That's usually a trade you would take. But then when you can kind of fight them head on, beat their mid laner, also get the bot lane turret, that's going to be the thing that breaks this game open, because they're going, yes, they have Kalista mid, but they're going right at Ackerman. Just the taunt over the wall as well by Woody's Galio, really just continuing that CC chain onto Cody, and they get the empowered ASOL ultimate out in that skirmish. Big win for PSG.
Just a little bit over-eager by Estral as well to take the fight.
Yeah.
The blue buff was basically dead. You didn't have your AD carry there. Felt like fighting over nothing more for those Stardust stacks than anything else, as Azure continues just to push in top. 3 for 3 is the score, about a 2,500 gold lead for PSG. We're dragging up in 40 seconds. Remember, Estral do have the Rift Herald, likely use it mid for pressure, just to try and make PSG have to react. PSG's wave play at the moment ain't good as they get the mid lane prio for now.
Yeah, looking across the board, it looks like everybody has flashes as well. But I think because of the bot push that PSG has, and the fact that Udyr has now moved down, makes this an incredibly difficult contest.
That's the Reaver's Wall. Azure going in, looking for the stun. Chain of Corruption down as well as Ackerman is knocked back with the Seismic Shove. The base call, though, gets him out with a sliver of HP. Ackerman will be able to escape, but has to reset, and PSG will use that as the trigger to go for the Dragon.
Yeah, I think I'm very surprised that Nico lived there, but I'm not surprised that PSG gets this Drake just based off the map pressure that they had. Bot lane turret killed, top lane turret killed, first move across the board. They actually, like, probably could have just taken the Drake based off of prio, but they wanted to win that fight in mid lane as well. And now this is going to be the attempted counter by Estral. See if they can get this mid turret.
Ackerman back on the map really quickly. obviously can, you know, fly between the trees with that empowered gear he has in Attack on Titan, so it's very easy for him just to jump around. But
yeah,
he does have the Hex Gates as well, you know, so able to get out pretty quickly. No turret falling in the mid lane as of yet, though. Estral can basically breathe on this tower, just need a couple of auto attacks. Ginger trying to keep him away from it as Maple is getting pushed in the bot lane. Azure is here to join up. Betty was resetting, but he's on his way, taking the Hex Gates to get back to mid. The problem for Estral is you are sacrificing waves in the bot lane. You're losing golden experience on the map.
The last minute and a half have not looked good for Estral. They haven't touched a side wave until just now. They have abandoned top wave because Renekton is just getting perma-pushed in by Udyr. And then Cody at the moment is not able to stand up to Maple's Taliyah. So it's a 2-level disadvantage in the top lane. It's at least a 1-level disadvantage in the mid lane. I think it's going to grow if they continue kind of over-grouping like this. But they were also over-grouping and didn't even get the reward from the group. The turret is still there. Still 0 turrets overall for Estral. So they're falling quite behind in just like the overall map play in this game, even if the kills are 3-3.
Benefit for them is that they did manage to take the first dragon of the game, so it's not sole point yet for PSG. It's slightly delayed. PSG using the fact that Estral are on their resets, push down mid, and that's exactly how you do it. Make the pressure in the side lane, and when you see Estral responding to that, then you push in mid. Estral currently struggling to get that pressure, partly because their top laner can't match the enemy top. Their mid laner can probably match Maple, but doesn't actually outpush him, so you can never actually gain prio in your side lanes to then group around mid. Yeah,
they're kind of relying on Jose Diodo's saplings to not die in their jungle. Like, that's how little vision they actually have. You can see the toggle right now. So it's very hard for them to do anything. And I know a lot of times the criticism levied against teams that are losing in situations like this are like, why are they not doing anything? Why are they just grouping? Because it's really hard to do anything when you can't see. And they also can't actually match anyone in the side lanes. Like, what happens now when Renekton goes bot to this Udyr is he's just stuck there. Like, he has to catch the wave. Even while he's catching the wave, he's probably going to lose some damage to his turret. Udyr can leave whenever the hell he wants and go threaten mid lane, which means mid lane can never play aggressive because Udyr is actually not on the map. And then as soon as Renekton shows on that wave, Taliyah, who's in the top lane, has just moved down as well. So, like, any time Estral wants to do something, there's a large threat that it's very, very bad for them. So they're just trapped in this cycle as PSG is kind of just waiting for the next Drake to spawn, keeping this pressure on.
Just trying to sneak away a jungle camp here or there whenever they can, denying vision as well, becoming the unknown, and that's the risk. That's the problem for Estral. PSG are the unknown right now. Can I step towards my blue buff? I have one control ward there. Is someone waiting around the corner in that second bush? Can I move towards the top lane? Currently, you can't see where Ginger is. You can just about see where Betty is. You know he's moved away from mid. You can't see where Woody is. You can't see where Maple is. The only person that you have vision on the map is Betty until we see Ginger on this control ward, but you couldn't step there because Betty was off vision. So how on earth do you ever react? As Estral, you just have to take the small bits you can get and hope a fight around an X-Drake, a fight around a neutral turns up in your favor.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't, PSG is going to be able to take these side turrets pretty procedurally. Maple has been taking notes on how to play the map. And honestly, if you defy his orders, you're going to have a bad time. But the team is clearly together. I'm going to look up what the 2019
one was. Okay.
I'm sorry, we're done. We're done. For those of you who know what we're doing, I appreciate you. For everyone else, apologies. But the next Dragon is going to be in 1 minute. You can see as well, right after getting the objective, PSG is recalling, like, this is just a very experienced-looking team playing a very slow but steady type of League of Legends that is very effective. 4,000 gold lead without really generating any additional kills, and they're continuing to just open the gap against the LLA.
And for Estral, who steps up? Cody, Jose Diodo, Ackerman, very experienced with a driving force for them in the LLA. Now need to be that once again. PSG have so many experienced names on this list, as you say, and are so good at playing this portion of the map, this portion of the game. This is what they were known for in the PCS. Their team fighting and their setups around these mutual objectives, and you can see Estral just leaking gold. It's only a 4,500 gold lead. I say only, that's, you know, one big completed item and a half. But Estral do still have chances in this game. They might just sack this next Drake and try and scale more. Cody only at 212 starter stacks, so maybe you just wait it out. You accept you're probably going to lose tier 2 top, but if you can hold the inhibitor line with Aurelion Sol, who is very good at clearing out waves, perhaps you can hold on to the game.
On the bright side, PSG's Baron's not that fast, but like you can see another vision toggle right here, just how blind they are. And this is why, like, we ask who steps up. It kind of has to be Ackerman's Nico finding some miracle engage, but like he gets hit by one Varus Q, loses 2/3 of his health, and everybody on PSG can also just flash out of the ultimate. So it's just very hard. Like in this current game state, you could replace these players with any players, honestly, and it's just so difficult for them to make a big play.
Just stifled out of the game. Maple putting the Weaver's Wall down. Azure trying to step forward. Ackerman half HP. He dashes forward looking for Azure, but this is just PSG chipping away at Estral. The goal is, you know, it's to kill people, but if you don't kill anyone, as long as you get a couple of people low enough, you can just turn your eyes towards this dragon. That's exactly what PSG want to do. It will be their third of the game. Hicks Soul point, and then they will likely reset, go towards the top side, get more vision, get more control wards, and start to play for that top lane tier 2.
My goodness. This is dominant.
Yeah, it really is. I think it's a lot of it comes back to Cody perhaps getting caught around that blue buff, and after that, PSG just haven't given Estral the chance. Also, the Rift Herald not taking mid tier 1 was huge. Here goes Ackerman, who double flash away into the hero's entrance phase, call out. Good fight from Estral so far, but they still can't quite find the kill.
I mean, that's a pretty good look. Now they're in trouble.
Azure's on a huge flank shielded round. Taunt going out as Ackerman is the first to fall. Zope getting locked up as well as the Cyclone on the backline means that Snack has to flash the wall. Zope will fall, and you could see in Estral's eyes that small glimmer of hope immediately extinguished by PSG.
Oh, the Udyr coming in the back door there is actually so clutch because, like I said, you can see why it was a good look. They got every flash out of PSG during that engagement, but it's going to cost them mid-tier 2. I thought it was actually going to cost them Baron as well, but they opt to just take the small victory and continue running their game. Like, let's watch this one more time. They see Betty Maple here. He is a minion. They move up a bit, and he actually catches both of them in the original stun, and they chain it with the Asol ultimate, but then, like, the rest of the team, just not enough damage to follow up. And the teleport in the back there with a 3,000 health Udyr, you're not killing that guy.
You're never going to kill him, and after that, it's just clean up for PSG. But this is also one of the risks of being behind in a game like this, because you don't have the time to methodically go through your jungle and clear vision. So even though you have a control ward in the bush, there's a ward behind that control ward, which gives Azure the ability just to TP behind you. And when you look for the engage, you have to have ticked your boxes, you have to have crossed your T's and dotted your I's. But PSG, just running it through by the numbers now. We'll set up around this top side. Have already taken the other tier 2s on the map. This is the tempo play we talked about after the Dragon. It didn't materialize because Estral went for the play in mid. Yep,
so 5 turrets to 0. I think will fairly soon be 6 turrets to 0. I do weirdly feel for Cody's Asol in this game because it is so out of place with how the game is going. Asol is one of the best front-to-back mages, but when they're losing every lane in the mid game, there just hasn't been a single moment where he's been able to actually have the proper setup to zone control a fight. And even that last replay we just saw, like, he's trying to fly in and dive with the Asol. It's just really hard to execute, and PSG is really kind of putting on a clinic here in game 1.
It's a small window for Estral. You mentioned it, all the flashes burnt on PSG. Does mean that if you get that CC down, very likely to stick. Estral might look for the play. Have no flashes of their own either, though, so it becomes a little trickier. Jose Diodo's flash just off cooldown, though. Nature's Grasp into flash. Engage here's a possibility. Tangle bars across the wall. There's a forward. Snacker not yet with the team as Jose Diodo just absolutely Jose deleted by PSG. The jungler down.
Although, I do feel like they're still going to want to fight them. They have to just lean into the desperation right now and go.
You have Fate's Call Pop Blossom. Ginger taking a little bit of damage from the Baron, was buffed. Astral flight across by Cody as Ackerman looks to step forward. Azure can get that flank position off with its control wall where he is right now. Ginger turns for the fight. Snacker's going to try and get away from this Udyr. Cody trading with Woody and Maple on the bottom side. But there's Cyclone immediately on the backline into the hero's entrance. Pop Blossom comes out on the bottom side of the fight, but it just doesn't matter. Shield of Duran taunts into 2 kills for PSG. Cody and Ackerman will walk away wounded, but PSG got exactly what they wanted.
Maple died. So there's a small glimmer of hope. You could see while we were watching the top fight, this giant ASOL all came down to pick off Maple. But yep, I'd say another small victory for PSG right there. Udyr is actually so unstoppable in this game. So I'll go back to what I said 20 minutes ago and redact it, please. That small advantage has been a big advantage in the game, but it's more about the setup. Like, the fact that he's consistently able to get on top of people like Snacker, he's just not letting him play the game. And yes, Maple does get picked with 2 big ultimates for 1 kill, but the overall fight is lost, right? It's overall a 3-for-1. And now we're just 32 seconds away from what would be Soul if PSG is able to pick it up.
No ultimate for Cody. Ackerman's still on cooldown as well. No Pop Blossom. Flash is coming up for Betty. Maple. Gingers is almost off cooldown. Woody's is on its way. Fights become a lot more difficult for PSG. They saw their small window, and there were the no summoners for Estral, sorry. They saw their small window, and there were no summoners for PSG, but gold lead continues to extend. About 5, almost 6,000 right now.
Yep.
And PSG will just deny all of this vision. Basically no vision past the halfway mark of the map at all.
If they could just get 1 flank ward in so they could have any threat on the back line, but they can.
There is the Hex Soul taken. Nature's Grasp coming out as well. Zofe looking for the fight. Woody trying to get on the backline. Shield of Duran taunt goes in as Ginger tries to get the Cyclone down, but can't quite get onto the backline. This could be the fight for Estral. Can they turn it around? Ginger using the clone to get out of there. Zofe trying to dash and slice and dice his way to safety. Azure still chasing forward. Pop Blossom lands on 2. Cody going in. The skies will descend, but Cody might go with them. Pops the stopwatch to buy himself a second. Snacker trying to get away from Azure, who is still somehow full HP. And no matter what went right for Estral in the fight, everything went wrong in the end. PSG cleaned them up. Azure still has half his health bar, and he's going to chase out Jose Dioda.
What a performance here by PSG in Game 1, making it seem so hopeless for Estral this entire time. I don't actually think they win off of that fight, but they win off of that fight. They have Soul, they're going to be getting Baron. Betty is just taking his time up the mid lane. They're going to have their cake and eat it too, with Udyr and Talia shredding that Baron while Betty takes this turret. They are dominating in this Game 1.
Red team's turn.
For Estral, you're looking at Game 2 now. How do you bounce back from this situation? A lot of these players with some experience on the international stage, but PSG currently just more than their match.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it just has to come down to macro. Like, we look at this draft at the very start as we watch this fight play through one more time, and it's just too big of a gold gap. Like, Genjia's Wukong, you think he's low, but you look up and he's got an extra 1,200 health. Udyr's health bar never drops below half. Ackerman, like, yes, he flashes in, and you can see Cody just, like, desperately trying to fly over walls to, like, pull off these random 2-man executions, but at the end of the day, the 80 carry has an Udyr on him 85% of the time, and he's unable to actually lower his health bar by more than 1,000. So it's just not even close. So, like, in terms of what adjustments Estral would try and make for Game 2, they're obviously going to change the draft, but it's almost like they need to be the ones, and you mentioned this too, with the tanky engaged support, so that if they get stuck in these situations where they're losing side lanes, they have like a stronger identity to maybe just brute force somewhere. But really, at the end of the day, like, if they can't stand up to the side lanes at all, they're not going to have a chance in this series.
One day, perhaps the lane swap goes a little bit differently. If Azure doesn't get to soak up all that XP, if Zofe doesn't fall as far behind, maybe the game, as you say, would look a little bit different. For now, Estral really only have 2 damage sources, Snacker and Cody, and neither of them are able to hit the same target at the same time, because Azure goes in, Ginger goes in, separates one person, Cody then flies forward, but you just don't have enough damage to work your way through PSG, who are beating you with their wallets right now. 11,000 gold to lead.
I think that's a good point you brought up, though, and yes, it was 30 minutes ago, but weirdly, the biggest moment in this game was the slow dive of Udyr at the beginning of the lane swap, where there were 4 people from Estral. Udyr gets level 3 before he dies the first time, teleports back, picks up the rest of the wave. giving him at least a 2-level advantage. And holy crap,
Yeah,
that's a lot of Varus damage.
Ackerman struggling. Picked up the first couple of kills in this game, but since hasn't been able to have as much of an impact as they'd like. It's going to be triple inhibs for PSG. They're pushing in. Only cannon minions bolstering their attack right now. Estro trying to defend against it. Azure looking for that third inhib. Sophie takes half his health and then backs away to the fountain. Pop Blossom. Maple Pop's a stopwatch. Woody forced away, but the Hex Soul doing so much work here. You can see Cody trying to escape Hero's entrance in. PSG unrelenting. Will push through the Nexus towers. Estro one last bastion of defense, but they just can't find it. Zope is kicked into the team. Will take down one, his first kill of the game. But in the end, it is PSG who will go 1-0 up in the series.
Really solid play from them from start to finish. They draft for the lane swap, the Galio support, the really